So greetings everyone, and thank you for coming today. For those of you I have not yet had the pleasure to meet, my name is Tony Penny. I'm the program manager for the Walter and Lenore Annenberg Presidential Learning Center here at the Reagan Foundation. And I have the distinct honor of introducing our speaker today. A brief note on the format of today's talk. What you are seeing today actually mirrors the educational philosophy of the Congressional Medal of Honor Foundation. As part of their education programming, the foundation works with teachers who implement their curriculum to bring students, both in person and via video conferencing technology, in contact with Medal of Honor recipients. As you can imagine, this is a life-changing opportunity for many students. Our speaker is here to talk with teachers about how this story might be used in the classroom, and when we knew this opportunity was going to be available, we asked the Congressional Medal of Honor Foundation if it was okay if we opened this talk up to our general museum public as well, and they said yes. So what you'll see is Mr. Pittman, when he comes up in just a few minutes, will make a few kind of brief remarks, and then it's going to be more of a question and answer format. First we'll start with the teachers, and then we'll go to our general audience. But before we get to today's speaker, I want to take just a moment to give a bit of context for today's talk and point out a few of the ways in which President Reagan and the Medal of Honor are intertwined. So 2011 is a year of celebration both for the Reagan Foundation and the Congressional Medal of Honor Foundation. At the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation, we are in the midst of a year-long celebration honoring the 100th birthday of President Ronald Reagan, a man whose patriotism and support of American soldiers and the values embodied by the Medal of Honor are well documented, in this very building even. In fact, it was at an address to the Congressional Medal of Honor Society in December of 1983 that President Reagan offered one of his most famous quotes. "The price of freedom is high," he said, "but never more costly than the loss of freedom. And freedom, we must always remember, is never more than one generation away from extinction. Each generation must do whatever is necessary to preserve it and pass it on to the next, or it will be lost forever." For the Congressional Medal of Honor Foundation, it is also a year of celebration. In December of 1861, the Medal of Honor was established by an act of Congress and signed into law by President Abraham Lincoln, making 2011 the 150th anniversary of the Medal of Honor. President Lincoln remarked, "Any nation that does not honor its heroes will not long endure." Part of the way that we honor our heroes in America is through the process of preserving their legacy and passing it on from one generation to the next. This is why the names of American heroes such as Washington, Jefferson, and Lincoln resonate just as powerfully today as they did in their own eras. Through its education programming, the Congressional Medal of Honor Foundation endeavors to perpetuate the legacy of the Medal of Honor and its recipients through outreach and collaborative efforts. Their character development program, which utilizes the stories of Medal of Honor recipients to promote the values of courage, sacrifice, patriotism, citizenship, integrity, and commitment, has been widely adopted on the East Coast over the past few years. And today, for the first time, this important curriculum and character development program is being offered to teachers in California. In fact, the reason Mr. Pittman joins us today is to speak to the more than 40 teachers who have decided to use the time afforded to them over the summer break to develop themselves as educators and to seek new opportunities for their students. In an era of standardized testing that focuses heavily on literacy and math skills, these teachers have decided that education is more than the ability to perform the 3 R's with relative competence. Education is also, and perhaps more importantly, about what to do with these academic skills. Education is about things like character, values, and being a responsible and informed citizen. In that same 1983 speech, President Reagan continued, "The world must see an America that is morally strong with a creed and a vision. We are such people. This is what has led us to dare and to achieve. For us, values count. They are the wellspring of our American way of life, the real meaning of the Hall of Honor. Service to country, patriotism, honor, and sacrifice." Well, there are few Americans who have a deeper understanding of the concepts of service to country, patriotism, honor, and sacrifice than our speaker today. The teachers in our audience have studied the heroism of Mr. Pittman and have knowledge of his courageous actions and how they ultimately led to his receiving the Medal of Honor. And I hope they won't mind me giving a brief recap for our lunchtime audience. After graduating from high school in 1963, Richard Pittman, inspired by President Kennedy's famous "Ask not what your country can do for you" speech, tried to enlist in the Army, Navy, and Air Force, but was turned down by each because he was legally blind in his right eye. Eventually, he was accepted by the Marine Reserve. During training, an officer asked if anyone wanted to go active duty, and his hand shot up. In the spring of 1966, Mr. Pittman was deployed to Vietnam as part of the 5th Marines, and on July 24th, his unit was on patrol, conducting search and destroy missions in the northern part of South Vietnam, near the demilitarized zone, when they were ambushed by the North Vietnamese Army. Mr. Pittman and a Navy corpsman started forward into the fighting. They had been back at the rear of the column, and nearly collided with a Marine who was standing frozen in the trail. He was carrying an M60 machine gun. "Are you going to use this weapon?" Mr. Pittman asked. Well, the Marine just stared blankly. Mr. Pittman grabbed the gun and several belts of ammunition and moved forward into the heaviest fighting. As he advanced, the trail was littered with wounded and dead Marines. When his helmet was shot off of his head, Mr. Pittman hit the ground but continued to advance. He destroyed the 2 positions that shot at him. Then he stood up again, cradling the machine gun in his arm, and advanced to the head of the column. The North Vietnamese regulars were rushing his beleaguered fellow Marines. When he reached the forward position, he was attacked by 30 to 40 of the enemy. With bullets whizzing past his head, he raked the advancing North Vietnamese soldiers with machine gun fire. His gun was hit and disabled by a shot from an enemy gun. And he picked up an AK-47 from one of the fallen Vietnamese soldiers and fired that until he was out of ammunition. Then he picked up a .45 pistol from a fellow Marine and managed to hit 2 enemy soldiers who were barreling down on him. When this gun, too, ran out of ammunition, he threw his only grenade. Inexplicably, the remaining enemy forces retreated. Back at his own lines, Mr. Pittman discovered that 2/3 of his company had been killed or wounded. Richard Pittman was just discharged from the Marines in 1968, and he was home in Stockton looking for work when he learned that he was to receive the Medal of Honor. President Lyndon Johnson presented it to him at a White House ceremony in May of '68. He re-enlisted in 1970 and retired for good in 1988, having served his country in the military for a total of 21 years. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Medal of Honor recipient, Lance Corporal Richard Pittman.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't have to sit, do I? I'm kind of a, I hope you don't mind that. Plus that it's harder to read when you have blind in one eye. I know you're probably wondering about that blind in the right eye thing, how I could possibly be accepted into the military. So if you haven't heard that story, I'll share it with you. As the bio says, I attempted to enlist right away. I wanted to be a Green Beret because John Kennedy said that was a good thing. That was his baby, and serving your country was his baby as well. And so after that speech where ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, I became a Republican. Sorry about that. And a Marine. I had been to the Armed Forces Examining Center so many times that they knew me by first name. So, are you here again, Rick? Yes. You're not going to make the eye test. I'm still going to try. So I would go, and as soon as I get to the eye test, I would fail, and I'd go back home. And then when it came, I never attempted to join the Marines until last because my younger brother was a Marine and had 5 uncles who were Marines, and I knew how the Marines would probably be the hardest to get into. But I never considered myself blind because as a child, I did everything I wanted to do. I played football, basketball, baseball. I hunted. And no one ever told me that I couldn't do anything I didn't want to do. And in fact, my mother encouraged it. Anyway, back to the Armed Forces Examining Center. After the Marine recruiter said, you could probably be a reserve, so we'll try one more time. And so I went. So I get to the eye test, and it was in a hallway that was 3 feet wide and 20 feet long. And down at the end was the eye chart with a light shining on it, and a corpsman standing there, a Navy corpsman, with a chart. I assumed it had the answers to the eye test on it, or the ABCDs or whatever it was. And he said, okay, cover your right eye. And I didn't wear glasses at that time. He said, cover your right eye. They gave you a little napkin, and I covered my right eye. Read the chart. As soon as I finished, he said, okay, now cover the other eye and read the chart. And he looked down at the clipboard he was holding. And so I knew that it was do or die. So I put the napkin in my left hand and covered my right eye again and read the chart, and he said, okay, you passed. And so I ran out of that room. I mean, right into where you say I do. I ran over there before anybody could change their mind. The reason I'm here today is because when the foundation, and today you're not going to hear me talk a lot about the foundation. You're going to hear me talk about the Medal of Honor Society. The foundation is just our vehicle, if you will. The foundation came along. Our charter, which was approved by Congress in 1953, had given us a mission that for, I was decorated in 68, and we began this actually in 2003, around there. In 2003, the foundation, after the foundation was established, they, let me give it back to our charter. Our charter gives us a mission that part of that mission should be to continue to serve after service. It means just because we may be retired or we may be out of our particular branch of the service now, that we should, as Medal of Honor recipients, continue to serve our community and our country. And part of those, and it challenges us to go out into the community and talk about, to our kids, to the youth, about courage, selflessness, sacrifice, responsible citizenship, and patriotism. And when the foundation came up with this idea, they actually came to society and said, look, we want to help you do something that is in your charter, has not been paid any particular or specific attention for 40 years. So the society said, what is it? And they came up with this character development program, and they brought it to our board. We are two separate entities. They brought it to our board, presented it, and most of us jumped on it. And we presented it to our general membership, and the general membership approved it as well. Because a lot of a lot of recipients, are just like you and I and your students and everybody else. Some are very outgoing and gregarious. Some are withdrawn and will hardly attend one of our events, much less speak to kids or anything else. For me personally, when I saw this program, it was they even gave me a kit. When it was presented to me, I wondered how come this had been ignored for 40 years. And I told the foundation, and Jennifer Lennon she's the quarterback of this team. I'll go anywhere, anytime, any place, because this is something that is so important that we cannot, as a recipient, it's my duty. So that's why I'm here. And not the first time, but every time that I've spoken, Chicago, Huntsville, I can't even remember all the places, New York, Washington, D.C., etc., to the actual students that have get involved in it. They're not in all those programs, but we talk about these values, the same things that are in the kit and in the program. We talk about these at the high schools and middle schools, everywhere we go. And when you see the look on the kids' faces, and you all know because you teach them, when you have an interest in a student, their eyes are like little sponges. You can just see it soaking up, And then when you talk to the kids that are actually in the program, I've been in a couple of what do they call those things? Video conference. There you go. When I was as young as those kids, we had a can, 2 string. Now they have all kinds of technology. Which reminds me, these kids, they ask such great questions, and I had to turn it off. That's as far as my technology goes. The kids that have actually participated in the program are so enthusiastic. I've talked to, my first involvement in my hometown was, believe it or not, it's not a well, it is like a continuation school. Being all of you are California, so you'll know what that means. It was a vocational environment where these kids are the ones that, they weren't criminals, they just didn't have any interest in school. They could do basic math and English and those kind of things, but not very well. Enough to pass, but not very well. So the county school system came up with a vocational thing, kind of like the classes we used to have in high school. Mechanical drawing, electrical, wood shop, auto shop, those kind of things, for these kids that seem to have a lack of interest in the academic side of the educational system. So those were the kids that got into this program. After the program, after the teleconference, I spent another 40 minutes just talking to those kids, not about war and not about the Marines, but about the contents of this program. They wanted to know what they could do after they graduated. Most of them wanted to know what they could do besides the armed forces. And so I told them, no, you don't know, I told them. I'm only kidding. I told them they could do anything they want to do, but the easiest thing to do would just be to talk to their brothers and their sisters and their friends about what they learned in the program. And the teachers and counselors at the school told me that every child that was involved in this, and there were 24 of them at this particular school, he said across the board, all their academic studies went up drastically, and the most important thing, most of them aced this program. And most of them had said they were going to continue their education after they graduated, and find ways to serve their community. So I said, I've done my job here. I'm good. So that's the thing I wanted to share with you. And then around the country, I also wanted to say, the kids we get letters from kids telling us, I received 154 from a class in Pennsylvania that I had never talked to. But I know their history teacher, and I helped him get them involved. They study, they can pick one recipient, but by Memorial Day every year, his graduating 8th grade class has to write a little report about one Medal of Honor recipient. The student has to find out where he came from, how he lived if he can, about the recipients, and it could be any recipient. And then produce a paper about it and tell what that story meant to that student. So, in those 154 letters, some of them will make you cry. They make me cry. And some of them are so hilarious that, they just make you feel good. So that's why I'm here. I was so happy to hear that it came to California. I was shocked. I'm a native Californian. I said, what? There are how many teachers? They said 55. I said, holy socks, are they in handcuffs or what? So they promised me they'd take off the handcuffs, and I don't see any. So anyway, that's why I'm here, and that's about all I have to say until you get to your questions and answers. I'm kind of an informal guy. I'm kind of a little hyper, as you can tell. So I'll be moving around, sitting down, standing up. So feel free to fire away.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I was wondering, other than the speech by Kennedy, what are some of your influences that shaped your values and your commitment to service?
My mother. I describe my mother. You know how they I hate the word they. I used to tell my troops, I am they. So just go do it. Anyway, politicians or whoever, they describe people that are conservative or strong supporters of the Department of Defense and patriotism, etc., as hawks. My mother would have been an eagle. Matter of fact, time she reminded me of a female eagle with a big switch. By the time I think the first book, real book that I remember reading all the way through was John Paul Jones. It was a little, I don't even know if they exist anymore, but it was a little reader. It was about this thick, maybe 100 pages. And it was like maybe I don't know if you all ever seen a Farmer's Almanac type kind of a book. That's the kind of book it was. Because I was one of those students who, at 8 or 9 years old, I didn't give I'm sitting up looking out the window. They're talking about dotting I's and crossing T's, and I'm looking at the airplanes flying over those. I didn't care. And so my mother would go to parent-teacher conference, and the teacher would say, you can't get his attention. He just stares out the window. He's really good at recess. He's smart, but he won't exercise his intelligence. I minded because in my day, if you got in trouble at school, when you got home, you'd be happy to get in trouble at school next time. So she gave me that book, and when I finished, and my mother did this, nobody else, no teachers. She said, you're going to read this book, and I'll get you another one when this book is done. But you are going to read this book, and then you're going to tell me what's in the book, and you're going to write me a book report. Because they give me books at school, and you have to write it, do a report. I just leave it under my desk. And then I said, my book report to the teacher would be, I read a book about John Paul Jones at the end, Richard. And so, but my mom, she's not buying that. So I do the report, and then the next book she bought me was about George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, and on and on and on and on. And by the time I was 12 years old, I had a deep interest in our country, and I was a patriot. I wanted to join the service. It was important to me that and as I got older, it was important to me that I shared these things with my friends and family. My grandchildren, especially my grandsons. I have 5 grandsons. We have 16 grandchildren. 5 grandsons and 13 granddaughters. My grandsons specifically have already received not those books, but books about these, not just the military people, presidents, Abraham Lincoln. They call me, my oldest grandson one is in the Marine Corps already. One is, he's one of those students I was talking to. I've had to get his attention a couple times. He's 19. He's about ready to join the Marine Corps or one of the branches of service. Because, trust me, he's not going to sit on his can eating his mama's food till he's 30 years old. I guarantee that. And so that's what I do. And as I got older, I am a Republican, but I am also a guy. I have all kinds of things in my head about that kind of stuff. I mentioned John Kennedy. It was my first personal involvement, even though I wasn't old enough to vote yet, because the 18-year-olds couldn't vote in those days. But when John Kennedy became president, I was only 15, but I would have voted for him anyway if I could. And just think, if it was today, I probably could. Who knows? But also things like Robert Kennedy. You know, Robert Kennedy said, he didn't say, part of his philosophy was when he heard this was this way or that was that way, he didn't ask why it was that way or why it couldn't be changed. He asked, why couldn't it be changed? In other words, why do we keep still doing it the same old way when we could, if we wanted to, do it this way? And that's always been my philosophy. I hate extreme bipartisanism, and I think as long as we all, I'm off the politics, I don't know how I got there, but anyway, as long as we all work together, regardless of what we are, for the betterment of our local, state, and federal government, then we'll all be better off and a whole lot more happy. And so now I'm ready to take any more questions. I'll get off the soapbox, I promise.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Pittman. It's an honor to meet you.
Hi.
My question is, what are your thoughts about the all-volunteer military service that we have today?
I think today we have the best armed forces that we've ever had in our history because they are all volunteer. These kids, I've served in the time of the draft system, and it worked if you want to say numerically. In other words, in the draft you always had a sufficient amount of troops to do whatever you wanted to do, but you didn't have a 100% engaged military. Because some of the kids that were drafted hated the draft. And if some in our audience are old enough to have been drafted, you can recall some of those. Not to say draftees were bad soldiers. Most of them were very good, but a lot just didn't want to be there, and they did everything they could do to disrupt the norm or just not participate. The second thing to that question is I believe in some type of national service. If they're going to bring back the draft, if I were king and they had to bring back the draft, I would say, okay, you can go, you're drafted when you're 18 years old, just like the regular draft. You are drafted, but you can select one of the branches of the armed forces. You can select a hospital, a community, forest service, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, in which you're going to serve for 2 years, but you are going to serve. So that's how I would apply that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to thank you for your service,
Thank you, sir.
Sergeant Pittman, and I want to thank the Foundation for developing a really fantastic character ed program, which I can't wait to bring to my students. And my question for you is, did your view of humanity change after your service, and if so, how?
No. I did not after, but during and after my service. Excuse me. Particularly during combat, I did wonder, and Jesus, it even applies now, but to a greater degree. I wondered how man had developed weapons that had come to the point. And I remember thinking this in the field one time. It had come to the point where we developed weapons that we human beings could do the things that we were doing to each other in combat. It still puzzles me, but I don't know the answer to that. But I have faith in people. I give everybody. I like to think that everybody will do the right thing. But I know everybody doesn't do the right thing, and so that's why I go around the country, me and other recipients go around the country trying to encourage people to do that. We tell the kids, it's just an example of doing the right thing. You see someone throw an empty milk carton on the ground or miss the trash can, and everybody just walks by it. If you go over there and pick that carton up, put it in the trash, you are doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing for your school, for your campus, and for your school. Because this is your school. And if you see somebody doing something to another human being, step in and help. Or notify someone, at least notify someone, especially the school environment now has changed. In my day, we had bullies, but not for very long. Because you didn't take it. I know you can't, now you can't, I was taught, some guy is, and I taught my daughters, and they're 42, my two oldest daughters are twins, they're 42, and I taught them the same thing. Somebody pulls your hair, don't say anything to him. He pulls your hair one day, just tell him not to do it. He pulls your hair another day, you tell him not to do it again. He pulls your hair a third time, you don't say anything, just make a fist and hit him in the damn nose. What I guarantee you, the guy never pulled her hair again. And Tina, that's the one that everybody says she should have been a boy, because they call her my son, my oldest son. She actually did it, bloodied the kid's nose, and then I had to go to school, ask the principal why I was there, and he said, because your daughter clocked some boy in his nose. He's down in the nurse's office with a bloody nose, and your daughter's in the other room. So I went in and told her, good girl. I did. But I told her, you can't do that again. Next time, don't hit him in the nose. She said, well, Dad, he said in the nose. So anyhow, that's my thought. I think human beings are supposed to be good. They're supposed to be good to each other, but I don't think that nowadays we're taught that way. I don't know, something got off the track somewhere where it's the right thing to do is to do it. And I don't think anybody has to tell you the right thing. I think human beings sense the right thing, but they don't want to step up. That's what we're trying to encourage people to do. Just step up and do the right thing, regardless of whether you're going to be criticized or not. It's the right thing to do. You know it is, do it. Just act on instinct and do it. So I think all people are good. Okay? Yes.
Good afternoon. It's an honor to see you here today. Thank you
you
for your service to our country. My question for you is, when you returned home from Vietnam, was it difficult for you to readjust to life here?
Heck no. You mean, I'll tell you, for one Vietnam veteran, yes, I did have problems, not problems, but I had some issues in adjusting to being at home and not somebody shooting at me 24/7. I had those things to deal with, and jumping at movement in the night, and I'm still this. Any combat veteran will tell you, you sleep, but you're never asleep. I mean, I still bump in the night. I'm up, not up, but I'm awake, waiting for the next. You don't act on the first sound. The first sound gets your attention, and then you wait for more before any action is taken. The one thing, there were some issues. They brought us home in '67 when I came home. We came home in the middle of the night, and it was by design. They landed us at the Marine Corps Air Station at El Toro at 1 o'clock in the morning, put us in showers, measured us, because our uniforms that came back from Vietnam were useless, measured us for the uniform of the day, fed us, put uniforms on us, let us buy 3 shirts, 3 pairs of civilian trousers and shoes, put us in our uniform, put us on the buses, and took us to LAX at 4 a.m. in the morning. And they did that for a long time because they didn't want troops mingling with the people. The government. And I've been called all the names. I was a recruiter. I had my name plastered on the side of a casket and carried around my office. Called all the names and all the other stuff, but nah, I don't have anything. I don't have any axe to grind about it. I have a lot of questions about why that, but no. To follow it up though, in 2001, when the troops were sent to Vietnam, or to Iraq, I'll tell you this, Vietnam veterans to a man said that was not going to happen again. That happened in the 60s and the 70s to our troops, and it did not. And you all deserve credit for that too. We know what they're doing and what they're risking. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Pittman, thanks again for your service and for your continuing efforts to, I think, better the young people of this nation. As teachers, we always appreciate the support of those folks who are outside of education. We thank you. I just wondered if heroes have heroes. You've worked with quite a few other Medal of Honor recipients over the years with your work with the Society. I heard a number of amazing stories with the assembled folks at Chicago at Soldiers Field last year, and I was just wondering if there's any other Medal of Honor recipient that you're aware of that really, all of them giants, but is there one that stands out in your mind?
Yeah, well, several. I'm amazed that I'm a member of this organization at all. I have been since I was decorated. There are just many. My very first Medal of Honor Society function, I was in Washington D.C. I was a young Marine sergeant, and they were in those days there was like 487 or so living recipients, and they were all in this giant, I can't even remember where it was, in Philadelphia, at the Navy Yard in Philadelphia, I believe. The giant luncheon they were having was called Department of Defense luncheon, and there were 1,500 people in there. We had 480 Medal of Honor recipients and their guests, and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the Vice President of the United States, and I was a little bit late because my escort, who lived in Washington, D.C., got lost. So I'm out in the hallway. I don't want to interrupt. You know, because I'm just a sergeant. I don't want to walk in there. I hadn't met any recipients or anything. And there was a set of double doors were open, and I knew that who it was. He was sitting there in his uniform. It was General Jimmy Doolittle. And, you know, he's got his whites on, the 4 stars on there. I'm going, God, I hope he doesn't see me. You know? And some other general officers are there as well, obviously. General Wilson, Commandant of the Marine Corps, et cetera. And for some reason, General Doolittle turned around and saw me and got up out of his chair. Somebody was giving a speech. He got up out of his chair, came over and got me, and he says, "What are you doing out here, Sergeant?" And I says, I'm late, General. I think I'm supposed to be in there, and I don't think I can go in there. Too many of you guys are in there. And so he said, "You are one of you guys. Come on." He grabbed me by the arm and took me in there. But, you know, my personal hero is not a Medal of Honor recipient. My hero is my squad leader, because he saved my butt, and a lot of other. By what he taught me, one of the reasons I was able to do what I did, and he taught me to use every single weapon in a Marine Corps company, and I used to hate it. Why do I got to learn how to use a bazooka? I'm a rifleman. Or why do I have to learn how to use a machine gun? Same thing. Why do I have to? And then we broke out the AK-47s and some other weapons the North Vietnamese had, infantry had. You know, I'm saying, Sergeant Paso, you know, what do the kids say now? I can't get my mind around it. You know? And he said, "You will learn to operate these weapons. You will learn." He taught us all that. But that's why he's my personal hero.
Mr. Pittman, number 5.
Number
Welcome
5.
home.
Thank you.
Our Elks Lodge in Santa Monica has had Mr. Ehlers come down and speak to our membership.
Well,
What other types of activities would you say a service group such as the Elks can do in conjunction with your foundation to help get the word out?
You can, as far as getting the word out, you can contact the Medal of Honor Foundation online, and they'll be happy to get in touch with you. The young lady sitting right here named Heather, she'd be happy to help you out. Also, The Elks can help tremendously with education. The Elks, the Kiwanis, I know they already all do. The Elks, the Kiwanis, the Rotary, the Lions, all of them. God, I didn't think you guys were going to ask me questions like to get me started. Service groups can, I know you do serve, but I think, you know what bugs me? It just, pardon my language, it bugs the hell out of me, is when I see a public service announcement asking the community to contribute to school supplies. I know what's going on with the budget and with schools and all that. I know that. But the Elks and the Rotaries and the Lions and all those guys, they should be out buying pencils and notebooks and dropping them off at their local school. Adopt a school. I drive down the freeway all the time and I say, it's about litter. And it says, the next 3 miles sponsored by the Fresno Rotary. Well, why in the hell did Fresno Rotary sponsor Fresno Junior High School? You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
I'm not chewing you out or anything. That's just my opinion. So that's what I think. And I forgot. Heather should have briefed you guys. They should have had. If you don't want to know, don't ask me.
Thank you, sir.
I forgot. Hi there.
Hi there. Thank you, Mr. Pittman, for your commitment to our country and to this program. It's been exciting to be here today. And before I ask my question, I want to tell you that the students in my school are very, very passionate about serving in our community and in our country.
Great.
Some are signing up for the military. Many are becoming police officers and firemen. And so I'm excited to add this little bit to their experience and challenge them by hearing your experience. So my question for you today is, how did your service in the military affect your post-military career? What did you go on to when you left the military?
Well, the most important thing was it allowed me to not to have to work unless I wanted to. And so, and I haven't. I'll add to that. I have worked a little bit, but after the infantry, I wanted to get in law enforcement. 2 things I wanted to do in my life was become a cop and be a Marine. Or be a Marine and then become a cop. But because of my eye, the state of California would not reimburse any people. An average person doesn't realize that if your community sends a man to the police academy, taxpayers pick up the tab. And now that's why there's the regional law enforcement academies, so that the communities don't have to pay for that student's training. So I was actually going to get out of the Marine Corps in 1974 and I wanted to become a police officer in my hometown, Stockton, California. And believe me, they could use it. Well, we've had to let out 58 officers in the last year. So, pretty high crime rate. But anyway, back to the other story. I became a military policeman. I received all the training that I went to the Orange County Sheriff's Advanced Officers Academy. I trained with LAPD, the FBI, FBI SWAT trained. All kinds of training in the Marine Corps, and spent most of my time on the street, as the officers will tell you, that's on patrol, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't like desk jobs, and so I pretty much had it with people by the time I retired in 1988. And so I just decided, along with my wife, I was going to do what I wanted to do. And so, because I was interested in security, and I still do it, I do some security consulting. I became a golf course superintendent for 5 years because I love golf. And when I got tired of that, I don't do politics. So going to golf course, there's only place there's more politics than running golf courses in Washington D.C. Because you can't not trust me. The golf course superintendent cannot win. He just can't win. The greens are either too fast or too slow. The course is either too wet or too dry. There's either too many flowers or not enough flowers. The breakfast is cold, dinner's hot. So you just can't win. So, and now I still do some security consulting, and I just have no desire to sit behind a desk or whatever. So I play golf as much as I possibly can. I do this. I travel about 6 to 8. Last year, 10 events for the foundation. So that keeps me pretty busy. And I don't have to have a job. And I have a wife who is a fanatic about work. She's an accountant, and she's on vacation right now with the grandchildren. She's probably doing somebody's work. The kids are in the pool, and she's got that laptop humming. I know she is. But she'll say it's a vacation. That's not me. Okay?
First, I wanted to thank you for sharing your experiences. My question to you is reflective. If you had an opportunity to change any one experience when you were in Vietnam, what would you change?
July 24th, 1966. You want to know why? That's the day the action I was decorated for. I'm not going farther than that because you get me all watery. Okay, does that answer your question, I hope? 130 people died or were wounded that day. My friends. That's the day I would change if I could change it. But I can't. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your service. Do you think your disability helped or hindered your ability to respond courageously?
To respond to what?
Do you think your disability helped or hindered your ability to respond courageously?
Well, first of all, I don't consider it a disability. Never did, never have, never will. No, my training is what allowed me to respond in the manner in which I trained. With missing my squad leader earlier, the Marine Corps, in situations in combat like that, or in most type situations like that, police officers, firemen, you just react to your training. It's just part of your instinct, and instinct takes over. Earlier question asked me about Medal of Honor recipients hero. I'll tell you a story. World War II hero who he passed away in December of last year, but he has absolutely always been one of my heroes. And just a little quick story about, I'll tell you about, this is an example about instinct and whatever. Jim Sweat. He's a Medal of Honor recipient. He was the last living Marine Corps ace from World War II. Jim was sent, he was in the Kwajalein Islands, and he was a Marine Corps pilot. Jim was sent with his wingman on a supposedly shot-free reconnaissance flight. But the airplanes are armed regardless. So Jim and his wingman take off from the from the islands, and on their way to the island of Atoll that they're supposed to photograph to see what the Japanese are doing on it, he sees 50 Japanese bombers and Zeros headed towards his air base. 50. I want to emphasize that. 50 Japanese fighters and bombers. Him and his wingman. So his wingman says, and Jim told me this story many times, and the wingman told me too. The wingman says to Jim, "Hey Jim, you see what I see?" And Jim says, "How can you miss them?" And the guy says, "Shall we skedaddle?" And Jim says, "Hell no, we got them where we want them. Let's go." Attacked 50 Japanese Zeros. Now, if that's not instinct, because you don't think he actually said, 2 against 50? Let's see what we can do. In their first pass, they shot down 7, and they continued until he was shot down. And the Japanese took off. And because him and his wingman delayed them enough that they could get other aircraft to the system. And I've always thought about that logically. If you read any of these citations, you have to ask yourself, what is that? Threw a grenade right on that table. What's most people going to do? They're going to run. He gets up and jumps on it. Everybody else around here survives. Why do you do that? There's just no explanation. Just instinct. Okay? Good. Next. Oh, over here.
I guess my question kind of follows what you were just talking about. I was wondering, as you go around and meet other Medal of Honor recipients, do you notice that, what qualities do they share that you can see?
Qualities?
Qualities, individual.
Oh, okay.
Qualities.
Well, I don't know if they're qualities or not, but pretty much, this is only my opinion now. I look around, I read the citations, I still do. They fascinate the heck out of me. And I'm a board member for the Medal of Honor Society. And I'll tell you, the best way I can explain their characteristics or whatever is sometimes they're like a whole bunch of privates that don't know which direction they're going. And most of their average age is 87 years old, I think. The last two recipients, living recipients, the two soldiers, they brought our age limit down to 86.5. But when we can't get anything going, I mean, we can't settle on the issue, we can't do anything. And somebody asked me this question in Chicago. My best answer is, when I get up there and to speak to the group, I tell them, I don't tell them, I say to them, look, I know I'm dealing with a room full of type AAA personalities. And I are one. So if we don't get this solved, I'm coming out there and kicking your butt. There's some 87-year-old recipient will stand up back there and say, I got to see this. We all generally have the same kind of characteristics. We're aggressive. We're like I said, we're gregarious. We're outgoing. We don't sit around and tell a lot of war stories with each other. Like we'll share funny incidents of things that happened, like my parents and uncles and shared with me when I was a kid. You don't ever hear any war stories. You'll hear like, well, you know, when Jones did this or Jones did that. Remember when we emptied out soup in the mess hall and filled the thing full of soap, you know? And if they could still do that today, they would. They're just regular guys. Okay?
Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you so much for your continued dedication and service. It's been really, really neat to hear about the Medal of Honor curriculum, and I don't even teach history, and I've been in awe with it. So I'm going to somehow incorporate it into my math classroom. I teach in a low-income community where more than 90% of my students are living below the poverty line, and many of them have been told that they can't achieve because of their background or because of where they come from. And you were told that you couldn't enlist due to a physical impairment. I'm wondering how, at such a young age, you stayed so focused on your dream and goal.
Because my mother taught me, and my grandparents were the same way, and one of the things lacking nowadays, I think, my mother told me and stressed to me and my brothers and sisters that this is the United States of America. No matter where you come from, no matter what you do, you can achieve your dreams. I believe that to the quick. If you could not do that, if we had it, it wouldn't be. And as mentioned in the opening, patriotism in this country is generational. Today, we have the greatest, what to me is the greatest generation since World War II. My age, people within a few years, lesser my age, have almost let this country get away. And they till this generation stepped up. These kids we have now are the smartest, the bravest, the most committed of any. And trust me, I was a Marine recruiter and a Marine staff NCO for over 20 years. And I've seen these kids. Yeah, they come in, Marine Corps, but their dedication, their home beliefs, as soon as they got off duty at 4 or 06 or whatever time, they're right back out in town playing all the games that the rest of the people play. But not this generation. It's our responsibility, and I'm not going to get into things about citizenship, immigration, and all that stuff. I do have opinions, but they're here. We should do and they're not going home. We as Americans need to do, citizens, we need to do everything we can do to help these people assimilate. And as part of the assimilation is for them to understand, rich, poor, whatever, in my opinion, that this is the United States of America, only here. And I've been like in 40 countries, and including the England and France, the so-called other Euro democracies. There, nowhere in the world, nowhere is the opportunity that exists here for anyone. White, black, green, yellow, purple, immigrant, citizen, whatever. The opportunity is here. They just need the encouragement. And I was taught that from you. And the other thing is, you never quit. You got to teach them that you can't. Your dreams. See, we have a couple of generations that I feel that the kids. Mommy, I got to have a laptop. Boom, you got a laptop. Mommy, I got to have a cell phone. My grandson came to my house with his 10 years old with a cell phone the other day. He won't anymore. He'll probably get. I'm not going to raise him. His mother probably gave it back to him the minute they got in the car. But in my house, the 10-year-old is not going to be on the computer, watching television, or on the cell phone. You got to get them interested in becoming part of the. And the main thing is, how do you give them? I don't know how you give them the drive. You just got to tell them. You just got to convince them every day. And with my Marines, I know you guys can't do it, but my Marines, I would just say, do something stupid, because if you don't, you're going to be stupid the rest of your life. And the one thing we can't fix stupid. Marines could fix a lot of things, but stupid we cannot fix.
Good afternoon, Mr. Pittman.
Hi.
Thank you for your dedication to our country and to our children. My question is, do Medal of Honor recipients visit base and VA hospitals to spend time with the soldiers from Afghanistan and
Absolutely.
Iraq?
We have, this weekend, I'm here, 2 parts for this weekend. The reason I'm down here was for a fundraiser for the Wounded Warriors and for us, for moi. Not for me personally, but for the society and the foundation. And every city that we go to, if there is a naval or a military hospital, yes, we go to the military hospitals. We go to the base, if there's a base nearby. Those are scheduled events for us. And Wounded Warriors, I mentioned 8 to 10 events for the foundation a year. Every one of those events, there is some interaction with the troops, or like I said, if there's a facility nearby, a VA facility, a hospital, those recipients that like to go, we all go. We go and visit either the hospitals, the schools, or the bases, because there's not enough time. People, when they invite us to their city, they want to get us in and get us out. It's because it's expensive. But there's a day schedule where that's all we do, one or the other. And then I've done this week is 8 Wounded Warrior events, charity events this year. So we out there. It's important that these kids, because the government is not. I got to be careful here, because I get into this and I get on and on and on. The government is not, in my opinion, going to be able to provide the care these kids coming home now are going to need into perpetuity. By the funds, the money that we are raising, me and the other people you see, and the other recipients, the money that we are raising, and it's up to over 100 million in some places. Our goal is to see that every one of these kids that are serving today, that their children, them and their families, are cared for as long as they need care. that each and every child, before he's age 18, before he's 18 years of age, he will have a paid college fund that will pay for school any place he wants to go to school in this country. That it's already paid for. It's committed. So money won't be taken out of there to put a bandage on his father. It will be his trust, a trust in his name, the student's name, or the child's name. And that's male or female, as long as his dad is a veteran or serving on active duty. And we've raised hundreds of millions of dollars, and we're going to continue. We raised $300,000 yesterday.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I will say one more thing though. I got to get this out. This is another bunch of crap that's being spread around the country. Americans are the most generous people in the world. We are. I know things are bad, but every place I go, I see people writing checks in the thousands of dollars. The last event, a guy was in the audience. We were auctioning off some of the Medal of Honor books. And we had one of them signed by 18 recipients. And this guy was just a guest. He wasn't part of the party or part of the committee that invited us there. He listened to 2 or 3 of the stories about the living histories that you guys saw earlier. And they started the bidding at $500. And it was about $750, I think. And he just stood up and he said, $25,000. If anybody outbids me, it's 50. One book. He wrote the check and he was gone. That's it. But I see it almost at least once a month. They're the most generous people in the world, and we don't have to be asked for somebody knocking on our door to give. We give. That's the way, and I'm proud to be part of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to say thank you for being a positive role model for our students with the media and everything today. We have very few positive role models, so thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
I know you can find 85 of them.
My question is, what advice would you give children in America today so that they can live productive lives to support our country?
Sit down in front of a mirror, look at yourself, and make yourself a promise to finish your education. Get educated. Nobody's going to do it for you. You got to do it. You guys are the venue or the vehicle, but they got to do it themselves. If you don't stay in school, what I do is sometimes when I go to schools, I like to take pictures a lot. So I'll drive downtown, or just if like on a trip like this, if I see something that I think will get their attention, I take 14 by 20s to school, and I'll when somebody asks, they inevitably will, well, what's going to happen if I don't finish my education? Shock. And I did it with my daughters. My oldest daughters are 42. The youngest is 28. They've all graduated from high school. 3 have either finished their secondary education or are finishing it. They've never used drugs. They've never been in jail. They've never been anything arrested. And that's because their mother and I were engaged with them. I attended, or my wife attended, we attended every parent-teacher conference. We attended everything that they did at school if we can. Sometimes I went in my uniform wearing my gun. And sometimes the school didn't like it, but nobody's going to argue with me. But I drove my unit, marked police unit. And parents have to participate. I know you guys probably talk yourself blue in the face about that issue, but the student, if he's old enough, my 10-year-old grandson is old grandpa. But my 14-year-old granddaughter, she knows that all she has to do is call grandpa. She'll call me all the time and says, Grandpa, I have an algebra question for you just last spring. Grandpa, I have an algebra question for you. And I said, now, only thing I know about algebra is this. And she said, what? I said, when my algebra teacher asked me what was wrong with me, I said I couldn't get over the concept that I couldn't understand about pi r round. I mean, or something. I can't remember what it is. Pi r square. I said, no, I can't get past pi r square. She said, why is that? Because pi r round, cornbread are square. So that was no, I'm only kidding. I told her, I said, you have to, this was her first semester of algebra. I said, the only thing I remember from algebra is I can help you if I got the book here. I can't do it over the phone. I said, but you got to get the formulas. You have to get the basics down. If you don't get the basics, you're never going to get past the first 5 pages. So if you're having problems with that, go to your teacher. And then when Grandpa picks you up from school, give me the papers or whatever, we'll get her done. And we have. Now she's going to be in Algebra 2 after 1 semester. So I just think it's not because Grandpa's smart. It's because she has the ability, but I let her know that we'll get it. We can do it, no matter whatever it is. But she's focused, and so is he. Now he'll become more focused as he gets a little older. My 10-year-old, because Grandpa won't. Okay. How you doing, sir?
Good afternoon. Thanks for coming. And this isn't really my question. This is from Mary Lee Pena. She's sitting over here. She was a little bit embarrassed getting up and saying the question, but we were just so impressed by the fact that you had such strong dedication when you wanted to do something and you heard President Kennedy's speech and you wanted to do something you weren't willing to give up, and you had that feeling that strengthened you to keep on going. Do you see men and women today in the military doing the same type of things, having the same type of feeling?
Absolutely. They're more
even without the mom's hand behind them?
Yeah. No, these kids are more dedicated than perhaps any of my generation. They're absolutely wonderful. First of all, because 99% of them are high school graduates. That says a lot right there in itself. But perhaps in my case, I was a history student. The only real class in high school that got my attention was history. And it was perhaps because of what my mother got me into when I was 9, 10 years old. And I say that because throughout history, Americans have done what everybody else said we couldn't do. Starting with King George. Are you kidding me? 13,000 against the British Empire? Or whatever it was at that time. And the rest of the world scoffed when they heard there's a what in the New World? There's the revolution. The rest of the world, France had to be begged, borrowed, whatever, cajoled to get into the war to help us. But they weren't really interested, I don't think, really interested in helping us. The primary thing was they wanted to get the king, to get back in England. So we could go into history even more of that. But all through history, Americans did what they couldn't, everybody said they couldn't do, but they did it because they believed that they could. Everybody. You can't build the Hoover Dam. You can't build the Panama Canal. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't build the Empire State Building. You can't do it. But Americans said, bull, we're going to do it. And we did it. And I just think that's part, General Patton, Americans are winners. And to Americans, in all things, is to be the best at whatever we could do. That's not a recruiting cliche. That's just the way that I was raised. If you're going to do it the very best that you possibly can. And if you can't, somebody will be there to help you see that you can do it. That's what you guys are doing every day. Helping achieve the American kids' dreams. Where you are is tomorrow. And they are tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay?